Hello there, boys and girls. Let's go ahead and get started with our week 11 of art class. Here we are with our Elements of Art interactive Google Slides. This is a slide show that you can interact with, that you can fill out information on and turn it in. This is due October 23rd, 2020 by 11:59 p.m. on Google Classroom. I want to go ahead and give you a few reminders before we begin, is that always have yourself in work mode, which is the mode that I'm in currently, and go ahead and always make observations as to what the slides are asking you to do. For example, this one is asking you to go ahead and please type your name in, and if you'd like just to go ahead and practice using the drag and drop features. These features, again, are only visible if you're in work mode like we are in right now. If you're wondering, well, Ms. Suniga, how can I tell if I am going to work on a specific slide or not? There's a very special little icon, and it is a little tiny rainbow on the right hand corner of your slide, and that will tell you that that's a slide that you have to move or fill in information. If it does not have this rainbow, that means that it is just an informational slide. Let's go ahead and begin. We are working with the element of art, value, tints and shades. Value. Here on the left, we have a swatch, which is kind of like a card that shows you a specific type of color. And this swatch is showing us the color blue. On the swatch to the left, you can see a bunch of different types of blue. Baby blue, cornflower, azure, steel blue, and royal blue. These are all variations of the hue blue. The word hue refers to pure, unmixed color. Value is the element of art that refers to the lightness or darkness of a color. Let's look at our little diagram here below. Notice here are my lighter colors, and they gradually get darker. When you mix a color or hue with white, it creates something called a tint. So when you mix your hue plus white, you create a tint. The more white you add, the lighter the color will be at the end. When you mix a color or hue with black, it creates something called a shade. So you have your color plus black, and that will create your shade. The more black that you add, the darker the end color will be. So here we have our interactive slide. Let's go ahead and look what it's asking. Identify an example of a tint and a shade on the graphic below by dragging and dropping the tint and shade arrows from the sidebar. So you have to drag and drop. Remember, I can tell if it's an interactive slide with the rainbow that is here in the corner. So, in case you may not remember, you can always feel free to go back to the previous slides and remind yourself what a tint is. Well, let me see. A color plus white equals a tint. So let me go back to this slide. And it's asking me to be able to identify what a tint is and what a shade is. So I'm going to go ahead and put my drag and drop little icon here into the section where I feel that it helps me show the answer. So I feel that this is a tint because I know that a color plus white equals a tint. And the more white you add, the lighter it can be. And a shade is usually a color plus black. So I know that maybe in this area we will have a shade. And when you go ahead and move your responses to the sections that you'd like them to be in, just leave them there. I'll let you know that if you can, please work on this on a desktop computer or a laptop. It's a whole lot easier than working on a cell phone. But if you do have a cell phone and you work on it through your cell phone, that is perfectly fine. Just make sure that you have what you need to go ahead and work on this section. When you mix a color or hue with gray, it creates something called a tone. So the more the more gray you add, the more muted or dull the end color will be. So I didn't mean to say great there, but I said great. I'm just thinking about grades, I guess. But when you mix a color or hue with gray, it creates something called a tone again. So a color plus gray equals tone. The more gray you add, the more muted or dull the end color will be. I see that this is an interactive slide indicated by the little rainbow icon over here in the right corner. So let's see what it says. Create an example of a tint, shade, and tone of the red hue by dragging and dropping the correct circles from the sidebar on top of each red circle. So I have to take whatever's here in my drag and drop and put them in the correct location. So I know a hue is the purest form of color. So I think that it should be left untouched. Now, a tint is a color plus white. So what I will do is I will find the white and drag and drop and place it on top. They're translucent, so they are going to be able to help you create these tints, tones, and shades. Now, the next is tone. Tone is created when you add a hue or color plus gray. So I will add that on top. And notice how it almost made it a whole lot more muted than it was before. And then our last one is shade, which is a color or hue plus black. And that's what it should look like. And there we have it. And remember, leave your responses there. All right, let's go off to the next slide. Oftentimes, artists create something called a value scale to help them practice making a full range of values. Value scales are arranged from lightest to darkest. Sort the boxes below to create a value scale for the hue purple. So for the color purple, we're creating a value scale. They always begin from light and they end with dark. So let's go ahead and find our lightest color and place it in the box above. And I will continue doing this until I am complete. Let's go ahead and observe what we have here. It begins with my tint on this side, and they gradually go into shades. This is our next slide, slide number 13. Use the color dots in the sidebar to complete the chart below. So we have red, yellow, green, and blue. This one seems as it could be a little tricky, but it just takes a whole lot of observation and being very careful with the selections that we make. If you get lost or confused and you need a reminder, you can always come back to your slides that were previous. You can always go through them and read up on what a tint, tone, or shade is. But I will remind you here as we work with this. So right here we have the color red. For the color red, we need to show what a tint is. A tint is a hue plus white. So for the color red, I'm going to go ahead and place an example of tint inside the little box. I also know that tones are created when you add the color plus gray. So the color plus gray of red will look somewhat like this. It's like a dull version of the color red. And a shade is always created with the hue plus the color black. And it looks just like this. And I will do this for every single color here in this section until I am complete. So that we know a tint is color plus white, a tone is color plus gray, and a shade is a color plus black. And I will continue. Once you're all done, make sure that you go back and review your slides to make sure you didn't miss any. Again, that rainbow icon tells you if you're supposed to work on it or not. If this is not there, then it is a slide for you to read. You have now officially reached the end of this activity. Before you submit, again, make sure you review. And then press the X on the window. You can close off your window that you're working in with your Google Slides, and then you'll be back to the part where you will see where I assigned you your work. All you must do is click Turn In. If you ever get a little notice from me saying that you need to retry again because your work was blank, please do so. Please do not resubmit your work blank. And that is all for this week, kiddos. Please make sure again that you have everything done. And this is due October 23rd, 2020 by 11:59 p.m. on Google Classroom. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful week and good luck on your exams.